Hi, Mark here from Audio Pursuit. Today I'd like to talk to you about the Aperion Audio Mark II Planar-magnetic super tweeters. First, I want to tell you a little backstory to all this. I happen to own the Magnepan 0.7 speakers. Now, if you know anything about Magnepan, there's one thing that's true is their top end. Just, it's not the most open in the world. It's not a Verity Audio. It's not Totem Acoustic. It's not Paradigm. In many ways, it's much more European, laid back. Well, as I've been listening to them for a while now, it just kind of seemed like something was missing, especially as I rotate my speakers quite a bit. When I listened with my Totem Acoustic Model 1s, the originals, or with the Paradigm Prestige 75Fs, they're really, really open on the top. The treble, you can even hear that hiss. It exists. Whereas with the Magnepan 0.7s, it just wasn't. You just don't hear that. That doesn't mean they aren't fine. I love my 0.7s, okay? But I knew there was one ingredient missing. So one day I began searching online, and I just couldn't find any super tweeters that weren't ridiculously expensive, other than some bargain basement ones that I just knew weren't very good, and the reviews, basically stated that. Well, I'd kind of given up on the idea, and then just by chance, one day I was thumbing through Aperion Audio website, and they're a company that I've done reviews of their products for years. Really great things. They're 6 series bookshelf speakers, their 533T towers, their 4T super slim mini towers, which my wife loved, by the way. And I went looking, and sure enough, they had some super tweeters, 2 models. So I looked and I saw, one's almost what I paid for my 0.7s. I got mine used on a ridiculous deal. And then I saw their introductory model. Now, I don't want to say budget, because really that isn't what they are. They give you a whole lot. And so here it is. Now, as you can see, they use the planar ribbon style, and then of course with the grill, which is of course incredibly typical of planners. And then next to it, you get the backside. So you get your 5-way binding posts, of course. But here's what's really cool. You get really easy to understand controls. Up top here, you basically have your off, and then your settings: 8 kilohertz, 10 kilohertz, 12 kilohertz, 14 kilohertz, and 16 kilohertz for where you want these to kick in. The bottom one shows 0 dB, -1 dB, -2, upwards of -5. And so now you get to play around, and that I did. Now, I need to tell you, for the review period, I used my Celestion SI stands, and I put the super tweeters on the outside edge because I like my ribbons, my tweeter ribbons, on the outside with Magnepan. I know some of you like them on the inside. Personal choice. I just find the outside to work for what I enjoy. Set them up on the stands, and basically what you do is get some speaker wire. In my case, I also used banana plugs, 12-gauge speaker wire, and plugged them in through the Magnepans down on the bottom. So you just get a little extension that way. Now, these are rated from 10 to 100 watts per channel, but don't let that fool you. I ran my Peachtree Amp 500 at 500 watts per channel in the 8 ohms and 700 in the 4 ohms with these, and it didn't bother them a bit. So these will take the power as long as it's good and clean, as we all know. So with them on the outside, start playing, and wow, what a difference. I was blown away. I was hearing things I hadn't heard out of these speakers, or even my previous pair of 1.6 QRs with a modified crossover. Just fantastic top end, really the things I was missing. Now, I had to dial in a little bit And that took a couple of days. I want you to understand that. You know, you listen to a variety of music, and even then, I still have a couple of different settings for certain albums. But for the most part, I set it up at the 12 kilohertz and then set it at minus 2 dB. And that worked perfectly for what I found overall. Now, I did find a few hot recordings where I turned it down. Found a few incredibly reserved recordings, turned it up. But for a general setting, that's what worked for me. But the point is, you get to choose. And that's what makes it special. Now, I do want to take a moment and talk about the looks of these. As you can see here, I've got the high gloss black, which really is stunning and works quite well because I have the black grills on my 0.7s and along with the dark cherry trim. With my other speakers, such as these LSA Signature 80s, which also have a little bit more reserved top end. Not as reserved as the Magnepans, but still, they're smooth. They're not sharp. So consequently, a couple of times I put these on there just for fun. For the most part, I don't feel like I need them, but hey, when in Rome. The other finishes is a white, gloss white, more of a aluminum face with the black, and then finally they have a deep red cherry face that's really stunning. I mean, it's super sharp. It almost looks Ferrari red when you see it in pictures. Haven't seen it in person though, but I'd like to. Now let's talk about the sound. Well, I start off with Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. And I'll tell you, when you hear the snap of the snare drum, the tapping on the hi-hat and the crash of the cymbals, it takes you back. It's like, okay, guess what? The treble exists. That top end, oh, it's rich, but it's not painful. It's not edgy, sharp, that it would irritate you. It exists, and it is vibrant. And that's the difference, and that's what's important to all of this. Now with jazz, a lot of the jazz, especially the traditional jazz, which I always like to describe as kind of in a nightclub with about 50 people or so, yeah, sometimes you kind of hear a softer treble, but this elevates it. You definitely hear the cymbals, especially the brush on the cymbals. That's what you get. You get a shimmer. That's what you really want. Then you go into classical. Woodwinds. Oh, what they do to the woodwinds, the concert hall seems to come alive. And, with classical music, so much of it that I found, the recordings, they just don't do justice to what really is presented sometimes. You really have to dig to be impactful. But this brings out those recordings and gives them more life, more three-dimensionality, more height in that high frequency areas. And then on the really good recordings, then you feel the depth come into play. The liveliness of the hall. You get that awestruck feeling of, oh yeah, this is a concert. I'm present for something. That's what these give you. After the review period was over, I decided to build myself some stands so I didn't have to use the Celestians. I wanted to keep those for my bookshelf speakers. So I built this. Basically, it's a piece of 1x6 cut into 3 pieces. The top part, horizontal, is deep enough that the whole super tweeter sits on it and gives a little bit extra room. And then these 2 pieces are set so that this mounts and slides down right on the top of the speaker. Not too far as to affect the sound of the ribbons, but just sits right on top and tight enough that it won't be tipsy either way. Now, as for placement, once I set these into that groove, I tried the center of the speakers, but you know what? Just didn't quite work as well as I had hoped. I thought maybe center, that might be safer and so forth. But in the end, I scooted them out to the outside edge, in line, with the tweeter ribbon of the 0.7s. And so that's where they sit when they're on board. And really, this took me, about an hour to do, between cutting, screwing, gluing, and some spray paint. I have a tendency to glue and screw just to make sure things stay tight. Some final thoughts on the Mark II Super Tweeters by Aperion Audio. If you have a set of speakers that are more casual and laid back in the top end, instead of dreaming about another set of speakers, give these a try. It's a much less expensive investment. They sell for $3.99 direct from Aperion with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Order them in, give them a try. See what you think. If you're like me, you won't send them back. I bought these. That's how much I think of them. They are that special. They make that kind of a difference with my Magnapan 0.7s. And like I said, you can adjust to what works best for you frequency-wise. These are a steal. No wonder in the year since I reviewed them originally on the website, they've gone in and out of stock a couple of different times. They are popular and they are good. They get my highest recommendation. Until next time, take care.